Hey everybody, Terry Robinson of Douglas Elliman Real Estate here. I'm sitting in our fancy dancy conference room getting ready to interview Albert Diaz.
Yeah, Albert Diaz of Cross Country Mortgage.
Yeah, we've got that synergy going on now between Cross Country and Douglas Elliman. So welcome to the team. We're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you, Terry. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Ah, shucks. So, to me, the point of this is, the point of sitting down and talking is to discuss appreciation. Appreciation has really been on like the cultural zeitgeist here during the pandemic because a lot of New York City real estate has been able to take advantage of the circumstances of the pandemic, and appreciation for certain aspects of the market has really gone up a lot more. So since we're talking about appreciation, I would appreciate a definition.
Yeah.
What do you call appreciation?
So when it comes to home appreciation, that would be the increase in the value of a person's asset. In this case, the asset being their home. Okay. The value of a person's home is virtual cash, essentially, right? So you can't touch it. Okay?
Right.
But if the value increases, right, and you have, let's say, a liability or maybe no liability against it, that's the value of your home, and that's your asset, right? That you would go ahead and take home at the end of the day if you realize the gain. Home values have gone up over the last couple of months, actually a couple of years, to be quite honest. We've been on a steady trajectory. And there's a multitude of factors that go into that valuation increase, right? We could start off with limited inventory. Historically low rates where people are looking to go ahead and borrow, right?
To take advantage of those rates, yes.
And in my mind, the biggest thing is supply and demand, right? We have a really high demand right now. A lot of persons looking to go ahead and purchase property to move from one, facet of their life to the next. And in order to go ahead and buy property, right, they need to go ahead and select. And there's just not enough inventory to keep up with the demand.
So appreciation, if we were to put some like specific numbers to it, let's say 10 years ago, you bought your home for, and using round numbers, $500,000. In 10 years, the property would appreciate by what? Now, I'm putting you on the spot here, but I really also want to reiterate to the folks out there watching that during the last 20 months, during the pandemic, that appreciation rate has accelerated quite a bit. So if you were to buy your home at $500,000 10 years ago, 2 years ago, it would have gone through the normal amount of appreciation. But in the last 2 years, just to keep using round numbers, that number accelerated. Can you give us some ballpark numbers around that?
Yeah, I could give you some humble opinions.
Thank you.
Professionally, I don't have any numbers to actually substantiate the amounts. But you were to buy a home, let's say 10 years ago, around the $500,000 range. In today's market, it's probably worth 2x, right? So maybe $1 million, I would say, be safe to say.
And if I'd have bought that, I would say, booyah!
Exactly, booyah. Turn around and fast forward 10 years, right? If you were to purchase a home at around $1 million, right? In today's market, about 20 months in, I would say you would probably see maybe the $200,000, $250,000 increase, right? Which is real money. Right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
People go into real estate thinking it's a very safe haven. They have to live somewhere, right? So the investment is worth it. And also, what people don't understand that real estate is the biggest hedge against inflation, right? So if inflation hits, which inflation is here, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, the best hedge against it is to go ahead and have a home, right? Because the value of your home increases with the rate of inflation in most cases. Sometimes it even exceeds the rate of inflation.
And you have to have a place to live. What's the point of paying? To me, I was raised, Daddy, thank you. Don't pay somebody else's mortgage. That's what you do when you pay rent. You're paying your landlord's mortgage. Pay your own mortgage, because then you can take advantage of appreciation the longer that you live there.
Correct.
I love this stuff.
Correct.
So, in order for a seller to, a homeowner to take advantage of this appreciation circumstance that we're in, they would need to sell at this time. So since we had brought up interest rates, and that's what a potential buyer would have to deal with, how are interest rates right now?
Interest rates are still relatively low, given last year's market. We're probably a little higher than we were last year, but they're still historically low, right? We're talking about 30-year fixed rates in the low 3 area for a primary home residence, right? Still very low. a normal market, just to give you some context, without any help from the federal government, would be around a 6% interest rate level, right? To go ahead and keep inflation down. But we're not there yet, right? So we're still borrowing money very, very, very cheap. And a lot of people also don't know that the 30-year fixed product is probably the most expensive product that a bank can go ahead and offer you. So we have other products where you can get even cheaper rates, right?
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but so a 30-year fixed mortgage, which is kind of the prototypical mortgage that most people will deal with. Does that standard to get that mortgage still involve a 20% down payment?
Not in all cases, no.
Okay.
There are different products and programs that banks have rolled out where you can place less than 20% down. It's not always required. 20% down is a good number to go ahead and put down, just because you avoid certain things like private mortgage insurance. You'll probably get the better interest rate at 20% down versus less of a down payment. But not necessarily, no. You can put some less
15, 10,
15%.
Depending upon your circumstances. What can you afford? What is right for you for the purchase of this particular property?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
What is there like a minimum? Is there the lowest you could go?
I have programs, or I have seen programs with a minimum of 3.5% down, and I'm not talking about the Federal Housing Administration.
Right. Okay.
Banks have understand that there's opportunity, right, and they're rolling out products and programs on a daily basis. So we have some jumbo products, and I reference jumbo just because of our marketplace, right? We live in the tri-state area where home values are probably higher than they are in some other parts of the country.
Pesky mansion tax. Yes. Yeah. Does it buy you a mansion? Does $1 million really buy you a mansion? Let's just call it the $1 million tax and be done with it. But sorry, personal aside.
Exactly. So we have some programs where you can place as little as 3.5% down and borrow up to $1.5 million. Maybe put a little more down and get borrow up to 1.75. But there's aggressive products out there available to the demand, right? So a lot of people that are entering the job force right now, straight out of college, maybe making a good salary, but don't have the accumulation of assets needed to purchase the programs to fit everybody.
That's great to know, because especially as you alluded to, people coming into the market for the first time. 3.5% down. If you're just out of college, if you're just beginning to begin your career, 3.5% down as opposed to 20% down is kind of an eye-opener. I wish I would have known that when I was out of college. It would have changed my trajectory of home ownership. Now, as a seller, is there any concern about a down payment that low?
There shouldn't be, but I guess when you look at the seller's point of view, if they have multiple offers on a property, right, their comfort level might be to go with someone that's placing a 20% or larger down payment, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should necessarily go with the 20% down, right? Nowadays, we have to do tremendous scrutiny to a buyer, right? Related to their income, related to the credit and assets, right? So once a pre-approval is given, there's a pretty good amount of certainty that person's going to go ahead and get the mortgage.
That's good to know. The reason why I brought this up is because I've had several instances in just the last couple of months with a first-time buyer that did use this program, that the seller was like 3.5% down. What's wrong? So, folks, there's nothing wrong. Take advantage of it, because again, booyah. Al, you're awesome. Thanks for doing this. This is great. Well, let's move to the future here, because there's buzz that inflation is here, that the Fed will have to raise interest rates just to keep things percolating. Do you have a opinion, perspective on that?
I do. I have a view. My view is that rates do have to increase, and rates increasing doesn't mean necessarily that it's a bad thing, right? It's a healthy thing, right? When you have rates, because it combats inflation, right? And we've seen parts around the world where they have hyperinflation issues, right?
Yes.
I don't think we in the United States will experience that. That's just my personal view. Anything can happen, though. But I think look at what's happened right over the last call it 2 years, right? There's tons of liquidity in the market. The federal government has decided to go ahead and just pump all of this money into the United States economy, and we see it maybe on a micro level because perhaps somebody got some stimulus money and they accumulated some funds that way. But really, you have to see these corporations that took advantage of these stimulus funds, right? And in turn, they have to go ahead and either reinvest it, they have to hire personnel, they have to go ahead and flood the market with money, right? And that's what we're seeing right now, is that we're seeing tons of liquidity in the market, and money is cheap, right? So when you combine the two, availability and the fact that it's cheap to go ahead and borrow, it's going to go ahead and cause this kind of transaction that we're seeing right now.
So would you say that now is the time, now in the next 6 months or so, before interest rates creep up, and they will creep up, they won't jump up.
Correct.
But now is the time to enter the home ownership, or to sell your property, to take advantage of the appreciation, our topic today. For you need to consider what your buyers have to go through to get this. With interest rates being at these historic lows, the next 6 months or so would be the time to really take advantage of this.
I wouldn't necessarily put it on a number of 6 months.
Okay.
I would just put it like this, right?
All right.
You mentioned the 10-year example. 10 years ago, somebody wanted $500,000. If I would have entered at $500,000, 10 years later, I would have $500,000 in additional accumulation of my wealth, right? The key here is entry. The sooner you enter, right, the better, I think you're better poised, right? Even if values fluctuate up and down, right, you're still paying down a mortgage. You're still getting benefits, right, to paying interest on a mortgage for a primary home, right? Even on investment properties, there's advantages to going ahead and paying interest, right? It's not the worst thing in the world. No. So I wouldn't say 6 months, but I would say the sooner you can enter, the better off you'll be.
And the better everyone will be for
Right.
that. The buyers, sellers especially. Al, this is awesome.
No worries.
Thank you so much for being here, taking the time to meet me. Is there anything else that you want to throw out on this subject?
No, I think this is something that I'm passionate about. I've been doing this now going on my 17th year now in January.
Look at this face. 17 years, please.
So I enjoy what I do. I've seen a lot of dips. I've seen a lot of valleys, right? Dips and valleys when it comes to the real estate community. But in the end, you have to live somewhere, and your housing payment is either going to consist of a rent payment, or living rent-free with family, or taking out a mortgage of some sort and having a housing payment that has the combination of real estate tax and insurance. I think it's a good way to go ahead and create a legacy. If you have somebody that you want to leave something to right at the end of the day, it's just something that will go ahead and help you and enable you to get to the next stepping stone. Right?
That's right. Buying your 1-bedroom apartment, selling that, moving to the 2-bedroom, selling that, moving to the house. Wow,
Exactly.
that's the way to do it. And Al can get you those mortgages to do that.
I can.
So, Terry Robinson of Douglas Elliman, thank you for your time.
Al Diaz of Cross Country Mortgage.
Booyah. Hey, everybody, you have a great one.